Sunday, 27 September 1942. Dear Kitty, just had a big bust-up with Mommy for the umpteenth time. We simply don't get along these days, and Margot and I don't hit it off any too well either. As a rule, we don't go in for such outbursts as this is in our family. Still, it's by no means always pleasant for me. Margot's and Mommy's natures are completely strange to me. I can understand my friends better than my own mother. Too bad. We often discuss post-war problems, for example, how one ought to address servants. Mrs. Van Daan had another tantrum. She's terribly moody. She keeps hiding more of her private belongings. Mummy ought to answer each Van Daan disappearance with a frank disappearance. How some people do adore bringing up other people's children in addition to their own. The Van Daans are that kind. Margot doesn't need it. She's such a goody-goody, perfection itself, but I seem to have enough mischief in me for the two of us put together. You should hear us at mealtimes, with reprimands and cheeky answers flying to and fro. Mummy and Daddy always defend me stoutly. I'd have to give up if it weren't for them. Although they do tell me that I mustn't talk so much, that I must be more retiring and not poke my nose into everything. Still, I seem doomed to failure. If Daddy wasn't so patient, I'd be afraid I was going to turn out to be a terrific disappointment to my parents, and they are pretty lenient with me. If I take a small helping of some vegetable I detest and make up with potatoes, the Van Daans, and Mevrouw in particular, can't get over it. That any child should be so spoiled. Come along, Anne, have a few more vegetables, she says straight away. No, thank you, Mrs. Van Daan, I answer. I have plenty of potatoes. Vegetables are good for you. Your mother says so too. Have a few more, she says, pressing them on me until Daddy comes to my rescue. Then we have from Mrs. Van Daan. You ought to have been in our home. We were properly brought up. It's absurd that Anne's so frightfully spoiled. I wouldn't put up with it if Anne were my daughter. These are always her first and last words. If Anne were my daughter. Thank heavens I'm not. But to come back to this upbringing business. There was a deadly silence after Mrs. Van Daan had finished speaking yesterday. Then Daddy said, I think Anne is extremely well brought up. She has learned one thing anyway, and that is to make no reply to your long sermons. As to the vegetables, look at your own plate. Mrs. Van Daan was beaten, well and truly beaten. She had taken a minute helping of vegetables herself, but she is not spoiled. Oh no, too many vegetables in the evening make her constipated. Why on earth doesn't she keep her mouth shut about me? Then she wouldn't need to make such feeble excuses. It's gorgeous the way Mrs. Van Daan blushes. I don't, and that is just what she hates. Yours, Anne.